Today we are exploring some of the greatest prophecies in the Bible, and we are exposing them. And I have some personal beef with these prophecies. So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with this already, but for those who don't know, I grew up as a Christian. I was a Christian for a very long time. And these prophecies are one of the major reasons why I ended up leaving Christianity. So we're going to be taking a look at these prophecies. We're going to be exposing them, and I'm going to be telling you exactly why they caused me to leave Christianity, or at least played a very big part in why I ended up leaving Christianity. So this is going to be really good, very interesting video. We're probably going to be talking about prophecy in general. Now, before we begin, I want to remind you, please like and subscribe. Why? Because it helps spread this information around. When you hit like and subscribe, it tells the algorithm to spread this info. This is important stuff. I want people to be able to see this and understand this. I want to help people liberate themselves from the shackles of religion and reach higher forms of consciousness. So please hit like and subscribe. It helps out a lot. Also, if you enjoy my work, consider supporting on Patreon, patreon.com/MorgueOfficial. It's the best way to support my channel. You'll get access to all of our members-only videos. There's a new one every week, and we're having one right after this, and it's going to be really good. We're talking about logic and the afterlife, how the afterlife is a matter of logic, not a matter of faith. So support over on Patreon at any tier, or right here on YouTube at tier 2 or higher to get access to all that. Also, if you haven't already, follow me on Spotify, my podcast, Dawn of the New Earth. Go look it up, go give me a follow. You can find all these videos there in a very accessible, easy to listen to, easy to watch format. And again, it helps us spread to various platforms, and we're growing pretty fast there. So go give me a follow there. I'm really enjoying that platform. Finally, remember, my new book, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, comes out on May 16th. So mark your calendars, it's happening soon. Very excited about that. All right, my friends, let's talk about prophecy. Let's take a look at this. So we're taking a look at biblical prophecy, and these prophecies are usually used as evidence by Christians to prove that Christianity is true. And that's essentially what I was taught as well. And these particular verses, these particular prophecies are one of the reasons why I stuck around Christianity for so long, and also one of the reasons why I left. And let me explain what I mean by that. So there are these prophecies in the Bible, and it's about how Jesus was the Messiah. And it's often said in church, like, oh, wow, if you take a look at the Bible and look at all the prophecies that Jesus fulfilled, right? If you look at all the prophecies Jesus fulfilled, the odds that any single person would fulfill these prophecies are like 1,000,000 to 1. It's probably even more, 1,000,000 to 1. They exaggerate it a lot. They basically go, look, this is proof. There's no way any person could have fulfilled all these prophecies by accident or even by trying to or whatever. But look, Jesus did. So this is proof that Christianity is true. And so when I began questioning Christianity, I was, there were a lot of very big red flags in Christianity. And one of the reasons why I thought Christianity was true, or believed that they were true at the time, were because of these prophecies. However, I never actually really took the time to study the prophecies for myself. I read the Bible, but I never really compared the prophecies with the life of Jesus and looked at them with a critical eye. And when I began to look at them with a critical eye, things started to fall apart very quickly. And so what we're going to be taking a look at today are some of these prophecies and seeing what problems they have. And to do this, we're going to be taking a look at an article written by, guess who? By Sheng Ta Tsai, and it's called "Does Old Testament Prophecies Prove That Jesus is the Messiah?" Now, if you don't know who Sheng Ta Tsai is, we did a video on him before. He is an ex-pastor. He used to be a pastor, and he left the church because of the corruption that he saw in the church. Essentially, he was told by the pastoral education system that he was going to, hey, don't teach your congregation these particular things, or don't tell them about these particular things, because it's just going to cause them to question their faith, and we don't want that. And so Sheng Ta Tsai did not like that very much. He ended up leaving the church. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. It's really interesting. It's called The Truth Pastors Don't Want You to Know, or The Truth Pastors Are Forbidden to Tell You. something like that. But go check it out. But anyway, this is another article by Sheng Tsai. I like him a lot. I think he's really interesting. So we're going to be taking a look at some of these. I'm going to be reading some excerpts from this. And if you enjoy what we read here, some of the excerpts, go follow him over on medium.com. Go give him a follow. Go give him some support on medium.com. And, but let's continue here. So let's take a look at what Sheng Tsai, someone who used to be a pastor and then left the church because of the corruption he saw in it. Let's see what he has to say about these prophecies. So he says, quote, one Christian website claims conservatively, Jesus fulfilled at least 300 prophecies in his earthly ministry. And I remember being taught that as well. I was taught that Jesus Christ fulfilled, I'm pretty sure that was the number I was given as well, 300 prophecies. Now that seems really impressive. And yeah, so Sheng Tsai says, this is an impressive number. I mean, if there were all these predictions about Jesus that actually came true, it would be pretty strong evidence for Christianity. And this was one of the reasons why I stayed a believer for a while, is because I assumed that these prophecies were true. And if they were true, that's good evidence, right? If these prophecies were true and they stood up to scrutiny, then, you know, having an individual that apparently fulfilled 300 of them, that's pretty good evidence for this person having, you know, some kind of claim to what he's claiming to be. That was my mindset at the time, at least. But I never really looked into it in detail. Now, why didn't I ever really look into it in detail? Well, because I was literally brainwashed. And you start from the place of assuming that it's true. So I finally started to look at them. And it's interesting because from that mindset, you go into it looking like, well, of course they're going to be true. Because you believe, you go into it believing that it's true. It's kind of like this. You've been told by science that everything is made up of atoms, right? And you probably believe that that's true. And it is true to a certain extent. Now, if we want to get metaphysical about it, reality is more than atoms, of course. Reality is frequencies, waveforms. It's an immaterial mental reality. But I'm not going that deep, okay? Reality is made of atoms from a material perspective, right? Science tells you that. Science says, hey, reality is made of atoms. So this is kind of what you're told since birth. And so you believe it to be true. And so if you were one day like, you know what? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical. I'm going to check it out for myself. And so you get a microscope and you're going to go, try and make sure that everything is actually made of atoms. You're going to start looking at different electron imagery, maybe like an electron microscope or whatever. I don't know. Whatever you're doing, you're going to do some type of scientific experiment to confirm this. Well, going into it, you kind of have the bias that it's going to be true, right? You're like, well, it's probably going to be true, but I just want to check to make sure. And sure enough, you check and yeah, it's true. Now, imagine checking and realizing that it actually isn't, you've been lied to this whole time, that it's not actually made of atoms, that they're made out of, I don't know, this other Lego bricks. I don't know, something else. Now, remember, I'm not going so deep as talking about quantum mechanics and the fact that reality is made of waveforms. I'm not talking about that. I'm just going with like the common sense idea that from a materialist perspective, reality is made of atoms and these structures do exist. Like that would be crazy, right? Your whole world would be turned upside down. You'd be like, oh my God, I thought that reality was a certain way. It's different now. So it's same sort of thing. When you're brainwashed into a religion and you're told like, oh, well, Jesus fulfilled all these prophecies. You're just like, oh, well, yeah, of course he did. He must have. Everyone says he did. All the pastors say he did. All the, authority figures in the religion say he did. This is what I've been taught since birth, of course. But you know what? I'm going to check just, there's some stuff that kind of doesn't make sense. I'm going to check just to make sure because I want to know for myself. And then this is where things start unraveling and you realize, wow, okay, what you have been told is not quite correct. So, and I want to just clarify one more time. I know that reality is not actually composed of fundamentally atoms. Reality is fundamentally energy, but they take the form of what we have labeled to be atoms. I'm using this as a heuristic device. I'm using it as an analogy. I'm not trying to make some claim that reality is material or anything like that. I know that you probably know that, but there are some people out there who don't know that for sure. And I just want to clarify and make sure that we're all on the same page. But anyway, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. So let's see what Sheng Tsai says, right? So Sheng Tsai is saying, hey, Christians say that Jesus fulfilled 300 prophecies. If that's true, that's impressive. Christians themselves often bring up these prophecies when talking to non-believers, trying to make the case that Jesus was really special because so many prophecies were about him. Yes, this is a very important part of Christianity. It is this is talked about all the time. It is like foundational, used as foundational evidence as to why Christianity is true. Sheng Tsai says, but here's the thing. When you take a closer look at these prophecies, you start to see some problems. And I like Sheng a lot. I don't know much about him, actually. I mean, I just know from I just like the first article that we took a look at that he wrote. I thought it was really good. I like this one. I relate to a lot of his experiences. And I think he accurately portrays the corruption in the church. So he says, I recently got a list of 30 prophecies, and instead of going through all of them, I will focus on the common issues that they have in the article. Then I'll dive into a few examples to illustrate these problems. All right, so basically what he's saying here is there's like it's claimed that Jesus fulfilled like 300 prophecies. It's like, okay, well, we don't have enough time to look at all of them. Let's look at 30 of them, and still looking at all 30, that would take a really long time. So just let's look at the problems that they all have in general, okay? So if you can see, by the way, on the screen, I'll put it up real quick, where it's very small, you probably can't see it, but these are a list of some of the prophecies, right? Like here is one of the prophecies. It says the Messiah would come from the line of Abraham, and then it gives the Old Testament scripture, Genesis 12:3, where apparently the prophecy was made, and then the New Testament scripture where apparently Jesus fulfilled it. So each one of these is a certain prophecy. Like here's one that says Messiah would spend a season in Egypt. So each one is a prophecy. Then it shows where in the Old Testament the prophecy was made, and then where in the New Testament it was fulfilled. So there's a list of 30 here. Okay. So yes, this is very much what I'm familiar with as well. This is all accurate as to how Christianity portrays these verses in these prophecies. But what's the problem with this? Okay, because if this were true, that would be very interesting. It would make one want to take a second look at what's going on here. So clearly something is happening here. But what's the problem? So the first problem, and here's what I have to really emphasize too before we start looking at these problems. I was very shocked when I started looking into these prophecies. Because again, remember, it's like you expect going into it that it's going to be true. You go into it expecting, oh yeah, I'm just going to confirm what I already believe. Just like I believe that things are made out of atoms. When I go, check, that's how it's going to be. And so you are shocked. I was shocked when I realized, because this is a very, like I said, very foundational. It's used to keep Christians believing in Christianity and to convert people to Christianity. The fact that these prophecies Jesus fulfilled. These prophecies are so ridiculous. I was kind of dumbfounded how ridiculous these prophecies were. And so let's take a look and see why. Okay. So the first criticism that Sheng Tsai says is, well, they're too broad. For example, I don't know how Christians managed to read the first prophecy with a straight face. The first prophecy is the Messiah would be born of a woman. I mean, who else would they be born of? A man? A donkey? It seems like such a basic requirement that it's almost comical to call it a prophecy. So, having, first of all, yes, A very basic prophecy saying the Messiah would be born of a woman is not very impressive. Not very impressive at all. There are quite a lot of people that match and fulfill that particular prophecy. And that's one criticism of these prophecies, is that many of them are extremely broad. They're very general, where many people would fit the bill and fit the description. Here's the other part. And this one was what really got me. It's that it's not a prophecy at all. Some of them, right? Each one of them have, like, some of them are too broad and some of them aren't even prophecies. And what does that mean? Well, for example, a lot of the prophecies are in the book of Psalms. Well, if you look at the book of Psalms is a book of hymns. It's a book of songs. It's not a book of prophecy. These weren't supposed to be prophecies. These were hymns, songs. And so they were lyrics to songs. And so can you imagine, like, picking out song lyrics and going, oh, look, clearly so-and-so fulfilled this prophecy because, look, it's in the song. It was a song. It was never meant to be a prophecy. So let's take a closer look here. It says, I'm always puzzled when Christians point to Old Testament passages that clearly aren't prophecies and claim they predict the future Messiah. It's like they don't know what a real prophecy looks like. And that's exactly right. And so many of these, it's not just Psalms, but there are so many where it'll just be like people having a conversation or talking about a certain king or part of a completely different story and being like, oh, well, that was a prophecy because Jesus did the thing. Like, no, it wasn't, it's never meant or intended to be a prophecy. It was a song or a story. So take Numbers 26, for example. Okay, so this is, take number 26. So this is prophecy number 26. So prophecy number 6 is the Messiah would be praised by little children. And again, that's still pretty broad, just to be like, kids like you. But anyway, it says the passage that they reference is Psalm 8:2. So theoretically, if I look up Psalm 8:2 in the Bible, I should see a prediction about a future Messiah being praised by little children, right? So that's what you would expect, right? If you're saying, hey, there is a prediction that the Messiah is going to be praised by little children, and this is the verse, you're going to go into it, you're going to look it up, and you expect there to be a prediction there, a prophecy there. But that's not what you find. He says, wrong. Psalm 8:2 is not even a prediction. It says, through the praise of infants and children, you have established a stronghold against your enemies to silence the foe and the avenger. And then, so that's the verse. Through the praise of children and infants, you have established a stronghold against your enemies to silence the foe and the avenger. And then Sheng Tasai says, if you read through the entire psalm, it's clear that it's a song of worship, praising God for his deeds and qualities. So it's a song. It's part of a song. Part of the song says, talks about praise of children and infants. And this gets somehow applied to as if Jesus fulfilled some kind of prophecy. So you can see there are a lot of issues here. First of all, they're incredibly broad, many of them. And even if some of them are a little more specific, they're parts of the Bible that aren't prophecies at all. They're songs or stories. And I think this is really important too, by the way. Not only is this just kind of interesting to know, but for people who watch my channel, because I know that there are a lot of people who watch my channel that are starting to question Christianity. They might be Christians themselves, and they're starting to question. I get a lot of people in the chat all the time who are like, oh, I used to be Christian, and then I started thinking about these things. And I think that's awesome. I think that's great. I love that. I think that's amazing. And I think it's important for people who are starting to question to realize that these prophecies don't hold water, because this is a very big part of why a lot of people become Christian and remain in Christianity, because of the supposed miracle of this prophecy fulfillment. So That's why one of the big reasons why I stayed a Christian. But then when I started to look at them, that was a very big factor. It wasn't the only reason why I left Christianity, but it was a very, very big factor in why my faith in Christianity started to fall apart. Because when I actually didn't see, faith is essentially believing for no reason, which is very toxic. There are different definitions of faith, but the definition of faith I'm using is belief for no reason. And so if you are to have faith, belief for no reason, you can believe in anything. It doesn't matter. But when you actually start to look at these things and examine them with a critical eye, they fall apart very quickly. So, here's another one, number 11. So prophecy number 11 claims that the Messiah would spend some time in Egypt, citing Hosea 11:1. But if you look at that verse, it's not a prophecy at all. It's just a retelling of the Exodus story. It says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. It's not a prediction. It's not talking about Jesus. It's just a retelling of the story of Exodus. Sheng Tasai says, give this verse to anyone who isn't a Christian and ask them if they can find any prophecy in it. Chances are they'll probably tell you that it doesn't sound like a prediction at all, and they'd be right. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly how, it's kind of like the whole, like the Simpsons are better at predicting things at this point than the Bible. And it kind of works on the same idea, where if you look at the Simpsons, the Simpsons have predicted certain things from happening. But why does that work? Because I forget how many episodes of The Simpsons there are. Let me look this up. Let me look up how many Simpsons episodes are there. There's 762 Simpson episodes. And it's been airing since 1989. 1989. So almost 35 years. 35 years. 1989, 765 episodes. The reason why Simpsons have, quote unquote, predicted certain things is because they have done so many episodes that they have explored in so many possible scenarios that some of them are going to happen. Now, it's not as though the Simpsons were saying that they're predicting, that would be different, right? If the Simpsons were like, hey, we're going to predict that this is going to happen. Like they explicitly say that. This is a prediction. And then if that thing did occur, well, that would be pretty interesting. But that's not how it works. The Simpsons are just a show about a lot of random things. And some things in the show have happened because they've done so many episodes. And a lot of things haven't happened. But when the thing does happen, people point back to it and go, oh, look, they predicted it. Well, it's just a TV show. It was never meant to be a prediction. It was never meant to do any of these things. It's just a TV show. So the prophecies in the Bible, the so-called prophecies, work in a lot of the same way as the Simpsons predictions work. In that so much the Bible's a very long book. There's so many stories about so many different things. All right. And then when Jesus came along, people looked at the different stories in the Bible. It was like, hey, this kind of matches. They must have predicted it. But they're just stories or songs, or in the case where they are actual predictions, which are very little, most of them are not, many of them are not at least, they're very, very general and vague. So I want to make that really clear that it's not as though a lot of these are explicitly said that, oh, this is a prediction. It just works in a very similar way as, the Simpsons do. So I remember, being very, very shocked about this, looking at these. I remember, looking up some of these verses and being like, wait, this is supposed to be a prophecy? This is just a song. This is literally just a song. How is this a prophecy? And it's, of course, just a prophecy because it kind of matches something that Jesus did a little in a very roundabout way. Well, what about all the other songs that Jesus didn't do? What about all those? Well, those weren't prophecies. Why not? I don't know. Some are, some aren't. Just the one. What makes a prophecy is if Jesus did it or not. It's not a prophecy because Jesus didn't do. Well, that one's not a prophecy because Jesus didn't do it. So, guess that one wasn't. And so here's another problem. So remember what Sheng Tasai is doing, because there's a lot of prophecies. He's basically showing the overarching problems that all of them have. They're either too broad, or they're not actually a prophecy at all. And here's another one, that the prophecy isn't actually fulfilled. So number two, the second prophecy, what is number two? Number two is the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem, right? That's prophecy number two. And according to Sheng Tasai, he says, this could be interpreted as a prophecy about the Messiah. So Sheng Ta is saying, okay, this one isn't just lyrics in the middle of a song or the retelling of a story. Like, you could actually say that this is a prediction. You could actually interpret it as a prediction. So what does it say? But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times. So this could be considered a prophecy. You see, this is a little more explicit, right? It's not a retelling of a story. It's not in the middle of a song. It's saying that out of Bethlehem will come an individual who will rule over Israel. But here's the thing. So Sheng Tasai says, but did Jesus ever really become a ruler over Israel? No, far from it. Not only did he never hold any public office, but he was actually arrested and crucified by the rulers of Israel at the time. He never ruled Israel. Now, so here's the thing is that, let's see if he mentions this. Yeah, so he says, even if we're more forgiving and consider the idea that Jesus had the backing of most Jews to be their king, the reality doesn't match up. In fact, the majority of Jews in the first century rejected Jesus. Even today, there are very few Jewish Christians. So a lot of these, like, Christians will try and get around it by going like, oh, well, you could say that he was the kind of like the ruler of Israel because he had a lot of followers, but it doesn't match up. Like, it clearly doesn't. He wasn't. And in fact, the whole religion of Judaism is predicated on the fact that Jesus isn't the Messiah. Like, there are a lot of prophecies about the Messiah that Jesus didn't fulfill. Like, Jesus, like, one of the prophecies is that he's supposed to be a great military leader. He's supposed to be this military leader that goes out and, like, conquers everything. And so clearly Jesus didn't do that. He wasn't a military leader. He didn't go out and conquer things. He was a nice guy. He was, teaching compassion. He wasn't going out conquering and pillaging and whatever. But of course, well, what do Christians say about that? Well, they're like, oh, well, that didn't happen yet. That's when Jesus is going to come again in the second coming. He's going to come again. The second coming is going to happen. And he's going to bring, judge the wicked and establish the kingdom of heaven on earth. You see how ridiculous this is? It's like, okay, first of all, they're extremely broad, or they're not prophecies at all, or he didn't fulfill them, or you're just claiming that if he didn't fulfill one, well, it hasn't happened yet. Like, there's no way to lose at this point. You have an excuse for everything. Yeah, so it says, so even if we assume that Jesus was actually born in Bethlehem, he still wouldn't meet the criteria for fulfilling the prophecy because he never ruled over Israel at any point in time. Now, number 30 is another prophecy. It says number 30 is quite amusing. It claims that the Messiah would be silent before his accusers. However, when we look at the accounts in the Bible, Jesus wasn't silent at all. He engaged in conversation with Pontius Pilate and spoke at least 7 times while on the cross, as recorded in the 4 Gospels. So if Christians are being honest, they'd have to acknowledge that Jesus didn't match that description. And that is, again, exactly right. And Sheng Tsai says, in my examination of these so-called prophecies, I haven't found a single one that doesn't suffer from the problems that I've listed. It makes you wonder, if God truly wants people to recognize Jesus as his chosen Messiah, why give prophecies that are so vague and open to interpretation, even cringeworthy at times? And that's so, and he continues, and he says, I'm sure that there's nothing stopping God from communicating clear prophecies with enough detail that they couldn't be misunderstood and their fulfillment couldn't be artificially manufactured. But we have none of that in the Bible. And that's exactly right. And I agree with Sheng Tsai 100%. And I really like his thought process here. And that's completely right. These prophecies are so vague, so general, not even prophecies at all, or not fulfilled. And if God was truly all powerful, if he wanted to, he could have had included prophecies that were clearly true, that were undisputably true. And that was another really big reason for me leaving Christianity, is that the stakes are very high. Your soul, where if you get it wrong, according to Christianity, you're going to be tortured in hell for eternity, right? This is a big deal. Eternal torture, okay? First of all, it doesn't make sense that a loving God would allow you to be tortured for eternity. That makes no sense whatsoever. Why not give someone another chance? What about forgiveness? No. So it makes no sense. But let's just put that aside for a minute. The stakes are very high. Why, being that the stakes are so high, why would God not make it clear that Christianity is true? Why would he, for example, make the prophecies so vague and general and up for interpretation and scattered in songs and stories and very, like Sheng Tsai says, cringeworthy? They are extremely, they are not strong at all. Why would God not make it clear? In fact, why would God, there are so many things that God, why would God not scrawl upon the moon, Christianity is the one true religion? Why not just, instead of having an eclipse, we could have Christianity is the one true religion written on the moon? I tell you what, I'd think, twice about it. Well, I wouldn't be a believer right away if that happened. I mean, you could think about maybe aliens or whatever you'd want to think, but that's beside the point. My point is that if God was truly all powerful and all loving, he could do things to make Christianity much more convincing, rather than putting in very general, vague, apparent prophecies, some of which aren't even fulfilled, and some aren't even prophecies at all. So it just does not add up. When you look at the prophecies in the Bible, when you look at any so-called evidence for the Bible, none of it holds any water. Look, my life is all about understanding reality as lucidly and clearly as possible in a rational way. If there was a way that one could rationally show that Christianity was true, I would be a Christian. But it's not. It defies every aspect of logic. It defies every aspect of coherence whatsoever. And I even saying like, oh, I would be a Christian if one could rationally show that it was true, it's so morally reprehensible. It's so morally corrupt that there is just no possible way that it could rationally be true. There is no case in which it could be true. If it were true, we would not live in a good and positive universe. We would be living in a universe that was ruled by an evil, cruel, and satanic being, which would undermine the foundations of Christianity, which says that Christianity is ruled by a loving being. There's just no way to shake it. It's saying that Christianity is rationally true is like saying 2 + 2 = 64, or saying that a square is a triangle, or a circle is a square in Euclidean geometry. It's simply so far from what is rationally conceivable that it is a literal impossibility. And that's the thing that I really want to get across. It's not a matter of probability. It's not a matter of like, oh, well, maybe it is true or maybe it isn't. I mean, there's maybe a little evidence for it, and maybe, it seems like the world needs it. No, it is logically impossible in every conceivable way. And you can know this for certain. It's not a matter of faith. It's not a matter of belief. It's not a matter of probability. It's not even a matter of evidence. It's a matter of the foundational tenets of Christianity break logic. You cannot have an all-loving, all-powerful, all-knowing God that allows souls to be tortured for eternity for some of the most minor, insignificant acts, like eating a piece of fruit. So it makes no sense whatsoever. And I get kind of passionate about this stuff because I grew up in a strict Christian household, but I really want to emphasize this, for people who might be questioning. I know it's really hard and I know it's difficult, but keep questioning, keep looking, keep using logic and reason, because I tell you, when you start to really examine this stuff, it falls apart really fast. So I hope you enjoyed this, my friends. It might not have been what you guys were thinking about when it came to looking at prophecies, but we'll probably do in a future video. We'll talk about prophecies more in general. Specifically, what I wanted to talk about today were these prophecies that are supposedly proof that Jesus Christ is the Lord, and how clearly that is not true. So I hope you enjoyed it, my friends. I have a lot more videos. Make sure that you like and subscribe because it helps spread this information around. It helps out a lot, so please do. Support my work over on patreon.com/MorgueOfficial. We're having a members only video right now all about logic in the afterlife, seeing how the afterlife is a matter of logic, not a matter of faith. And make sure you follow my podcast on Spotify, Dawn of the New Earth. And my new book, Neogenesis, Dawn of the New Mind, comes out May 16th. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I want to give a big shout out to everyone who supports, especially Renaissance Fairy, Cassidy, Angela, the Halloween Mom, DB, Fashida, Nusalina, Eric, Christopher, Joel, Thomas, Ryan Smith, and everyone else. Thank you very much.